Good morning and welcome to Vibrant Morning here in BTV Kenya. Now, Vibrant Morning brings you what is in the People Daily newspaper, that is newspaper review. Remember, you can follow us on BTV Kenya, that is on YouTube page. Subscribe and leave a comment. Let us know where we are reaching you from. You can also visit us on Facebook page, that is Blackman TV Kenya. Remember also to subscribe and leave that we know where we are reaching you from. Remember, your feedback are very vital to us, and we'll be very grateful to hear from you and know your opinion on the services that we provide you with here from BTV Kenya. Now, my co-host Lennox Odede is not around with me today. Is out to help us gather more news on what's happening in Migori County and in Migori Town. We believe we'll be able to bring us back what is there in Migori County and Migori Town. I'm your host, Gagi Isaiah, and this morning I say welcome to the Vibrant Morning. Remember, People Daily newspaper is a free newspaper. Just move to your nearest vendor, pick a copy, and read more comprehensively, as I will just be giving you a brief of what is in the People Daily newspaper. Now, looking onto the cover page of the People Daily newspaper, we see the cover story. The big story of the day is that Ruto and Raila scheme to share power. That story is in page 4. Insiders reveal that two foes turned allies explore legal instruments that will enable their parties assemble alliance ahead of 2027. That's a story that is in page 4. Please grab a copy and read more comprehensively. Now, also looking at the cover page, we also see Pope Francis leads Catholic Church from hospital ward. That's also on page 23 on health matters. And also, MPs now demand Sakaja arrest. MPs demand Sakaja arrest following the incidents that had happened in Nairobi, where the Nairobi County officials or the Nairobi County office dumped garbage at the entrance of Kenya Power offices. You can also read that. And also, we also share a story here on welfare, whereby Labour Cabinet Secretary, that is the famous known former governor, says future over 700,000 children in the dark after the society dissolved. You can also, sorry for that, you can also grab a copy of the People Daily newspaper and read much of that comprehensively. Now, for the lovers of matters of social, we see modern family, single fathers, heroic sacrifice. That also you can read on page 17 of the People Daily newspaper. Now, let us jump into page 2, where we see what is in page 2. Looming crisis as SHA disputes 30 billion Kenya shillings claims by hospitals. Now, Rural and Urban Private Hospital Association RUFA affiliated institutions have tabled claims that acting CEO Robert Ingasira challenges. Now, remember, previously we have been giving you updates on matters of RUFA and the SHA, whereby the organization that is the Union of Rural and Urban Hospital, that is private hospitals, who had threatened to boycott their services or not to give their services to members of the public who are under SHA. They said either you pay cash or you seek medical attention elsewhere else. Now we see that the SHA CEO, that is Robert Ingasira now challenge the 30 billion claims that the hospitals are claiming that they are owed, that is by SHA, as a result of the transition from NHIF to SHA. You can also grab a copy and read that story. Is by Caroline Kibasu. It states, the crisis in private health facilities is expected to worsen after the more than 300 facilities operating under the Kenya Association of Private Hospitals CAF suspended services under the Social Health Authority due to unpaid arrears. This came as acting SHA Chief Executive Robert Ingasera disputed the 30 billion being demanded by the Rural Urban Private Hospital Association in arrears. You can also grab a copy and see that. We hope this is going to be resolved so that Kenyan citizens may be able to access the medical services and be treated in the right time or at the right time. And also we see same page, state keen to construct new TVET institutions. Now, story by Robert Mwambingu is on page 2, where the government is keen to equip and construct new technical and vocational education and training institutions to equip the youth with employable skills. Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Julius Ogamba, affirmed yesterday. Now this happened during the time when the CS was officially launching Likoni Technical and Vocational Training Center of Excellence in Refrigeration and Air Conditioning. So you can also grab a copy and read that story by Ruben Mwambingu. The story is on page 2 of the People Daily newspaper. Now moving into page 3, where we see there is also hope and there is also a future there, as things are now changing for the betterment of tourism, where we see Diani Festival, where tourism meets culture. Now the fete showcased rich tradition of the Mijikenda, offering a glimpse into their centuries-old way of life. A story by Shaban Omar. Now, this year's Diani Regatta Festival attracted thousands of locals and tourists to Kenya's world-famous coastal town Diani. The vibrant event known for celebrating Swahili maritime and cultural heritage was held along the white sands of Safari Beach Hotel in Kwale. You can also read that, as we see that also helped the country to move forward in matters that engage the tourists in the Republic of Kenya. Please grab a copy and read that story by Shaban Omar. Now moving on to page 4, where we see Ruto and Raila Grand Coalition reported to be in the works. Now nemesis turned friends said to be working on a legal framework for alliance ahead of 2027 general elections. Now that is a story from Rollins Otieno, Kefa Otieno and Noven Owiti. The story in brief states, President William Ruto and opposition leader Raila Odinga are working on a legal framework for a grand coalition ahead of the 2027 election, in a likely game-changing realignment in Kenyan politics. You can also grab a copy to read much of that story more comprehensively. And now we see on the same page, IBC needs 62 billion Kenyan shillings for the 2027 elections, and officials say. Now, story by Masimwai, it will cost Kenyans a whopping 61.7 billion to conduct the 2027 general election, the electoral agencies have said. The money is expected to be provided in 3 financial years, in 2025-2026. Independent Electoral Boundaries Commission's IEBC Deputy CEO Obadia Keitani explained to the MPs that there is a need to pump in 62 billion Kenyan shillings to see that 2027 election is successful. You can also grab a copy and read that. Now we move to page 5 also, where we see the same story is still there, where IEBC calls for an urgent funding from lawmakers in order to fulfill legal role. Story by Faith Masharia in page 5, where we see the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission's IEBC has called for adequate funding from the National Assembly to facilitate smooth electoral process, including voter registration, voter education, and the necessary reforms. Now that is in page 5 of the People Daily newspaper. You can also grab a copy and read more comprehensively on that story. Now still on page 5 we see King mourns officer who died in Haiti. Now family of constable who succumbed to injuries recall moments with the young man they describe as a hero or as heroic. A story by Christine Musa state that Constable Samuel Kaitawi, who died during a security operations in Haiti on Sunday, had always assured his family that he would be safe in the Caribbean nation and looked forward to returning home after a successful mission. You can also read that story and more comprehensively in the People Daily newspaper. The story is by Christine Musa and on page 5. Now moving on to page 7, where we see some 700,000 children at risk should the agency be dissolved. Now Labour CS pleads with the MPs to spare CWSK from dissolution, saying it cares for minors who risk going back to the streets. Story by Mercy Mwai. About 700,000 vulnerable children being supported by the Child Welfare Society of Kenya risk being left homeless should the government proceed with the plans to dissolve the agency. Now this comes yesterday, a week of yesterday, where Labour and Social Protection Cabinet Secretary Alfred Mutua pleaded with MPs to save the institution after his efforts during the cabinet meeting chaired by the President William Ruto fell on deaf ears. You can also grab a copy and read much of that story. And also on the same page 6, we see the state to spend 1.5 billion to resettle squatters, where in the story we see the government has set aside 1.5 billion to buy land from absentees, landlords, and resettle squatters at cost, President William Ruto has said. Now the president said this is aimed at resolving heroic land dispute in and issue title deeds to residents of the region without ownership documents. You can also grab a copy and read that story on page 6 of the People Daily newspaper. Now moving on to page 7, where we see legislators decries low compensation of households displaced for projects. A story from People Daily correspondence. Now the National Assembly Committee on Land and has decried the slow compensation pace of Kenyan household displaced by government undertaking projects such as construction of roads and other strategic infrastructures. You can also grab a copy. And page 7 we see DAPK calls on